Alright, one more time. I'm going to try this one more time because Bulletinman's had a long day. It's election time, and I've been scrambling all weekend. The Bourbon bystander went down, I think, like Saturday morning, and we thought that it was under attack or being hacked, but actually there was just too much traffic on it. But it's back up, so we got the bystander back up. I got a bunch of information over the weekend concerning the election tomorrow, Tuesday. And if you live in Bourbon, it's very important that you get out and vote, and you vote for the right man, and that's Larry Masering. And let me tell you why, Larry. You know what? Larry is a businessman. He's there to make money. He buys and sells whatever he can buy and sell that is legal. All right? He buys military surplus. He buys army surplus. He sells tattoo supplies. Oh, my goodness gracious. That is such a crime. He sells other things that tarps, trampoline, I mean, just about anything that he can get a deal on, he's going to sell it there. Larry's been in town for 15 years and has literally brought hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenue into the city of Bourbon and brings people from hundreds of miles away just to come to his store. Now, I'm telling you, folks, Larry and I hooked up about 2 or 3 years ago. I've been coming to Bourbon for over 20 years. I used to live down in Leesburg and was on the radio in Sullivan and had a little store in Leesburg. And you know what? I just met Larry just a few years ago. I've worked for Blue Springs on and off for the last 20 years as an independent contractor. I worked for the Bass Boys. I worked for the Garrisons. I've worked for quite a few different outfitters in the area. And, I've worked for Mary McCameron's at one time. What I do is go into the city and try to get people to come to Crawford County. I usually go down the South Outer Road to go to Bourbon. I never stopped in over at Larry's until the last couple of years. I dropped the paper off over there. We got to talking. And Larry wanted to start a website over there to expose the corruption, what was going on in Crawford County and in Bourbon in particular. So I I figured, you know what, I'll just go down to Crawford County and run for office down there myself and try to uncover some of this stuff. And you'd be amazed what we have found in the last 9 months that we've actually been doing this. There is an election tomorrow. It is going to be on April 3rd. The polls open like at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. They'll close until 7. We're hoping to have some other media come down and cover the election. We're trying to do things right and restore sanity to our government. The police are simply out of control. In the city of Bourbon, we are spending about $300,000 a year for the police. And really, what are we getting for that? Here are the revenues from the sales tax revenues I obtained from City Hall the other day. And I got to thank the fine folks over at City Hall. Kathy and Tina over there have been nothing but kind to me and do what I ask them to do, and it's no big deal. I also have a report of all the different alarms that have sounded in the Bourbon area in the last year or so, and also a report of the nuisance violations that have been cited in the city of Bourbon. And I also have a report of all the burglaries that have been reported in the city of Bourbon over the last year or so as well. First of all, Leonard wants to talk about progress. He brought the Dollar General store to town. You all know the story about how he got the property, and we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, what he did there is, I believe, criminal, and we're going to find out whether or not it's criminal one of these days very soon, I'm afraid. So the bottom line is, Leonard talks about progress, that sales tax revenues are up, that the $100,000 plus he had to spend to bring the Dollar General store to town, and really not even the city owning the property like they should have bought. He talks about sales tax revenues being up. At the end of 2006, the general sales tax total was $165,000. That was for the City Hall, Police, and Park. And the street was $79,274. So that makes up a total of, well, let's say $250,000, $250,000. Okay. All right. Now let's go down to fiscal year 7. That total is a little bit down. 157 is the city, police, and park, and 75 is the street. And 08, 163 for the city, park, and police, and for the street, 78. And 9, really down. 150 for the street, the city, park, and police, and $72,000 for the streets. And the last fiscal year 10, which goes from July to June, July of 10 to June of 11, you have revenues of $255,000, 160 for the city, police, and park, and 75,000 for the streets. I have to admit that 11, 12 is looking a little bit better. You might come up with maybe 260. So general sales revenues are up just 10%. I mean, not even 10%, $10,000. So about 4% since they brought Dollar General to town. And do you realize they used dirt from the city industrial park to fill that property in? Did the city pay for gas? They weren't supposed to, but I have to believe they did. Maybe I could be wrong. I could be mistaken. If I am, prove me wrong. He bought it at his daughter's gas station. That's, he spent over $25,000 of the city's money at his daughter's gas station, which on one of his ethics reports he admits that he's lent money to them. He has an interest in that. That's just not right. City equipment comes up, disappears, reappears a couple hours later. $75 to get your water back on when they're paying employees $12 to $15 an hour. And how they're treating the city employees over there is they're at will employees. That means they can be fired for any reason whatsoever. There is no protection there. The two most loyal employees they had, they didn't give them raises this last time around, totally dissed them. They've cut the health insurance to where it's just like outrageously expensive. Sick days are down to nothing based on merit or some bull crap. No raises for the city employees. They're spending $300,000 a year for police protection. And what are you getting for $300,000 a year? They had 9 burglaries reported. Now, obviously, there's probably more than 9 burglaries in town. Some people just don't have no faith in the police and they ain't gonna call them and bother. All right, but there's 9 incidences reported in the last 15 months or 14, 12 months or whatever. All right, 5 of the 9 are still open cases. The other 4, the chief puts on here that they're pending. Whatever pending means, I have no idea. Maybe they're pending in the court. Maybe they're pending a police report. I really don't know. All right, but there's been 9 incidences when you had to have someone, a police officer, come respond to a burglary. Here are the 911 calls. All right, hundreds of commercial false alarms. All right, I cannot see anywhere in here. Maybe I'm not reading it right. I can't see anywhere in here where they actually caught somebody there when the alarm went off. All right, they're either commercial malfunctions or maybe the owner set them off or whatever. But there are only 5 residential alarms they answered. Everything else was commercial. Okay, this is very troubling. Nuisance violations letters. Out of the money the police department gets, about $200,000 a year comes from the court system, and about 75 or 80% is that people traveling through and coming down here on vacation. They're being shaken down by the Bourbon police, and that's money that's not going to be spent down here. And those people aren't going to come back here. All right, and then the rest of the money comes from the locals who have no money because none of the tourists are coming back out there because everybody works in the tourism industry. All right, so about 270,000 of that comes from that. I mean, about 170,000 comes from that. The other 85,000 comes from sales tax. Now, all right, this is how people make sales taxes. They have businesses, all right, and in order to have stuff to sell, you have to store your stuff, stuff so you can sell it. All right, and the chief even admitted that in one of the council minutes. He said, "This is how the guy makes a living." He was talking about the tires. But they cited 9 people with nuisance violations. Okay, but they actually gave my ticket Larry back in November a ticket for having a following business is still in litigation for code violation 420.070 prohibited signs. A copy of the code violation and nuisance violation letter was sent before action was taken by this department. Mazarine Wholesale. Larry's got these signs out on his property that advertise for him. All right, they're the former MoDOT signs. There are scrolling signs at other businesses in town. I can think of 3 of them off the top of my head, in front of the junior high too. All right. Same type of sign, not to mention the gas stations. One that Litter Starter owns. All right, they're digital changing, alphanumeric digital changing signs. And with the price of gas nowadays, my goodness gracious, you look over there, you might have a wreck, maybe even have a heart attack if the price of gas is nowadays. But if you actually read sign 420 of the code, which God bless Ken Howell wrote, I believe. Every sign in town is prohibited. It's just whether or not they like you, and they're not going to give you a ticket. But Larry's supposed to go to trial in February. That was put off until after the election. Imagine that. So I'm telling you, folks, if you live in Bourbon, you love the town, and you want to see it prosper and grow, then it's time for some new leadership. It's time to put Leonard out to pasture, let him go out to his farm and hang out there at the farm and do what he's got to do. All right, well, I got to go. This is Don the Paralegal on the phone. So I love you. We'll talk to you soon.